Why do you think Vikings are remembered as brutal warriors? You might be surprised by the truth behind their reputation. In this video, you'll uncover the real reasons behind the Vikings' fierce image and explore the complexities of their society. What factors shape the Vikings' fearsome reputation? Vikings came from Scandinavia, primarily Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Their culture valued bravery, honor, and strength, making them formidable. Surprisingly, many Vikings were farmers and traders before they became raiders. The harsh northern climate fostered competition and survival instincts among them. Understanding their origins helps explain why they were perceived as brutal. Did Vikings really enjoy violence, or is it a misunderstanding? Most stories of Vikings come from their enemies, who often exaggerated their actions for dramatic effect. Interestingly, the term Viking originally referred to a person's occupation, not a specific group of people. Vikings had a rich culture filled with art, poetry, and trade that is often overlooked in favor of their violent image. This brutal representation overshadows their skills as craftsmen and explorers. Realizing these myths helps you see Vikings in a new light, revealing their true nature. How did Viking mythology influence their actions? Vikings believed in gods like Odin and Thor, who represented war and strength. Honor in battle was essential. They believed dying in combat led to a glorious afterlife in Valhalla. These beliefs significantly shaped how they viewed conflict and violence. Understanding their spirituality reveals deeper motivations behind their actions, complicating the notion of them as simply violent raiders. Vikings more traders than raiders. While often seen as brutal raiders, Vikings were also skilled traders. They established extensive trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, and beyond, facilitating cultural exchange. Many raids were strategically planned to gain wealth rather than simply for destruction. Their trade relationships with other cultures often led to mutual benefits, showcasing a complex society that balanced violence with commerce. How do historical records shape our perception of Vikings? Most historical accounts about Vikings come from those they invaded, often painting them as savage and uncivilized. Viking sagas, while entertaining, can exaggerate tales of violence. Recognizing these biases helps you question the reliability of historical narratives, revealing how history can be distorted. Understanding this context enables you to see Vikings more accurately. How did geography influence Viking actions? Scandinavia's rugged terrain fostered resilience and adaptability among the Vikings. Limited farmland made raiding a more viable option for acquiring wealth and resources. Natural waterways enhanced their travel and raiding abilities, shaping both their raids and their relationships with other cultures. This connection illustrates how the environment impacted Viking society and behavior. What was the social structure during Viking warfare? Viking society was hierarchical, with chieftains leading groups of warriors into battle. They used advanced shipbuilding techniques that allowed for quick, stealthy raids. Loyalty and camaraderie influenced their effectiveness in combat. Understanding their social structure provides insight into their military strategies, adding depth to their reputation as fearsome fighters. Did Viking warfare change over time? Viking tactics evolved as they encountered different cultures and warfare techniques. They adapted to the defenses of their targets, including fortified cities, showcasing their intelligence. Their ability to learn from others helped them remain formidable opponents. Recognizing this evolution challenges the view of Vikings as mindless savages, revealing their strategic thinking and adaptability. How did women influence Viking culture? Women in Viking society had more rights than in many other cultures of their time. Some women took on roles as warriors or even led raids, defying traditional stereotypes. Their involvement in trade and decision-making significantly impacted Viking society. Understanding women's roles provides a fuller picture of Viking life, enriching the narrative around their perceived brutality. How does Viking culture influence us now? Modern Scandinavian cultures reflect Viking heritage in various ways, from language to customs. Their myths and legends continue to inspire literature, movies, and art today. Fascination with Viking history has led to increased interest and research, highlighting their lasting impact. Exploring this connection enriches your appreciation for their historical contributions. Were Vikings known only for their raids? Surprisingly, Vikings were skilled navigators who explored far beyond their homeland. They established settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, pushing the boundaries of the known world. This adventurous aspect of Viking life contrasts sharply with their reputation for brutality, showcasing their contributions to exploration. What factors led to the decline of Viking raids? Internal conflicts and the consolidation of power in Europe reduced Viking influence significantly. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices among them. Additionally, increased defenses and military strategies of other nations curtailed their raids. Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, illustrating changing dynamics in power. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience? Viking sagas contain thrilling tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons that reflect their values and beliefs. These stories serve as cultural artifacts that provide insights into their worldview. Exploring these myths offers a richer understanding of their legacy, connecting you to their historical narratives. How can understanding their humanity change perceptions of Vikings? Recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations humanizes these historical figures. This approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions. Embracing their humanity helps dismantle the stereotype of Vikings Vikings as merely brutal raiders, fostering empathy and deeper engagement with history. What elements of Viking culture are present in today's society? From shipbuilding techniques to language, the influence of Vikings is still felt today. Their values of courage, loyalty, and exploration resonate in modern culture. You can trace roots of modern storytelling and craftsmanship back to the Vikings. This legacy illustrates the interconnectedness of past and present, enriching your view of contemporary culture. What common myths about Vikings need to be debunked? Many myths, such as all Vikings were brutal or they wore horned helmets, still persist today. Challenging these misconceptions encourages a more accurate historical narrative, enhancing your knowledge of Vikings. This awareness promotes critical thinking about historical narratives, helping you navigate the complexities of Viking history. Why is it crucial to view Vikings within their historical context? Context helps explain the actions taken during their era, shedding light on societal pressures and challenges. Understanding their environment allows for a more empathetic view of their actions, encouraging appreciation for the complexities of history. Contextual understanding enriches your learning experience, providing deeper insights into Viking culture. How do modern perceptions of Vikings differ from the past? Today, Vikings are often glamorized or vilified in popular culture. Films and TV shows create skewed images of their true nature, blending fact with fiction. Analyzing these representations helps clarify what is real and what is dramatized. This understanding aids in fostering a more accurate portrayal of Viking history, revealing the ongoing fascination with their legacy. Now that you've learned about the complexities of Viking culture and their reputation for brutality, you can engage in deeper conversations about their history and appreciate the richness of their contributions to society. Why do you think Vikings are remembered as brutal warriors? You might be surprised by the truth behind their reputation. In this video, you'll uncover the real reasons behind the Vikings' fierce image and explore the complexities of their society. Did Vikings really enjoy violence, or is it a misunderstanding? Most stories of Vikings come from their enemies, who often exaggerated their actions for dramatic effect. Surprisingly, the term Viking originally referred to a person's occupation, not a specific group. This means many people labeled as Vikings were not solely warriors, but engaged in various occupations, such as farming and trading. It's fascinating to think about how easily perceptions can shift based on who tells the story. Vikings had a rich culture filled with art, poetry, and trade, which is often overlooked in favor of their violent reputation. In fact, some historians argue that the brutal image of Vikings overshadows their incredible skills as craftsmen and explorers. For example, did you know that some of the finest metal work in Europe during the Viking Age came from their workshops? This intricate craftsmanship tells us more about their culture than the tales of raiding ever could. Realizing these myths helps you see Vikings in a new light. It's important to differentiate the sensationalized stories from the reality of Viking life. They were not simply ruthless marauders. They were people with diverse interests and rich traditions. By understanding the broader context of Viking culture, you can appreciate their complexity instead of viewing them through a narrow lens of violence. How did Viking mythology influence their actions? Vikings believed in gods like Odin and Thor, who represented war and strength. Their belief system deeply intertwined with their daily lives, shaping their values and practices. Honor in battle was essential. They believed dying in combat led to a glorious afterlife in Valhalla. This perspective encouraged bravery and a willingness to engage in conflict, but it also led to a unique understanding of life and death. Understanding their spirituality reveals deeper motivations behind their actions. They did not view violence merely as a means to an end. It was a part of their cultural identity. This belief system complicated the notion of them as simply violent raiders. It becomes clear that their actions were influenced by a profound spiritual framework that guided their behavior. Were Vikings more traders than raiders? Were Vikings more traders than raiders? While often seen as brutal raiders, Vikings were also skilled traders. They established extensive trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, and beyond, facilitating cultural exchange and economic growth. Many raids were strategically planned to gain wealth rather than simply for destruction. Their trade relationships with other cultures often led to mutual benefits, highlighting the complexity of Viking society beyond brutality. The Viking trade network was impressive, allowing them to exchange goods and ideas with various cultures. This duality showcases that Vikings were not just warriors, they were also merchants who contributed to the economic landscape of their time. Understanding this aspect of their culture helps to reshape the narrative surrounding their reputation. How do historical records shape our perception of Vikings? Most historical accounts about Vikings come from those they invaded, often painting them as savage and uncivilized. These narratives can create a biased perspective, clouding our understanding of Viking society. Viking sagas, while entertaining, can exaggerate tales of violence for dramatic effect. Recognizing these biases helps you question the reliability of historical narratives. By understanding who wrote these accounts and their motivations, you can better navigate the complexities of Viking history. This context reveals how history can be distorted, shaping perceptions that may not align with reality. How did geography influence Viking actions? Scandinavia's rugged terrain fostered resilience and adaptability among the Vikings. acquire wealth and resources, driving them to explore and conquer. Natural waterways enhanced their travel and raiding abilities, allowing them to reach far-off lands. Geography shaped both their raids and their relationships with other cultures. This connection illustrates how the environment impacted Viking society and behavior. Understanding this influence reveals the pragmatic decisions made by the Vikings and how geography played a crucial role in their lifestyle. What was the social structure during Viking warfare? Society was hierarchical, with chieftains leading groups of warriors into battle. They used advanced shipbuilding techniques that allowed for quick, stealthy raids. Loyalty and camaraderie among warriors influenced their effectiveness in combat, making them formidable adversaries. Understanding their social structure provides insight into their military strategies. The relationships formed between warriors were crucial in battle, fostering a sense of unity that contributed to their success. This social dynamic adds depth to their reputation as fearsome fighters, revealing the human connections behind their brutal image. Did Viking warfare change over time? Viking tactics evolved as they encountered different cultures and warfare techniques. They adapted to the defenses of their targets, including fortified cities, showcasing their intelligence and adaptability. Their ability to learn from others helped them remain formidable opponents, challenging the view of Vikings as mindless savages. Acknowledging this evolution reveals their strategic thinking and the continuous refinement of their approach to warfare. It demonstrates that they were more than just riders. They were skilled tacticians who understood the importance of adapting to their surroundings. How did women influence Viking culture? Women in Viking society had more rights than in many other cultures of their time. Some women were warriors or even led raids, defying traditional stereotypes. Their involvement in trade and decision-making was significant, impacting Viking society in various ways. Understanding women's roles provides a fuller picture of Viking life. This perspective adds depth to the narrative of Viking brutality, showing that their society was more complex and nuanced than often portrayed. Women played vital roles in maintaining and shaping their culture, challenging the conventional notions of Viking society. How does Viking culture influence us now? Modern Scandinavian cultures reflect Viking heritage in various ways, from language to customs. Their myths and legends continue to inspire literature, movies, and art, demonstrating the enduring fascination with their history. This legacy showcases the lasting impact of their civilization, revealing how their stories still resonate today. Exploring this connection enriches your appreciation for Viking history and highlights the relevance of their culture in contemporary society. Understanding these influences allows you to engage more deeply with the past and recognize the significance of Viking contributions to our modern world. Were Vikings known only for their raids? Surprisingly, Vikings were skilled navigators who explored far beyond their homeland. They established settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, pushing the boundaries of the known world. This adventurous aspect of Viking life contrasts sharply with their reputation for brutality, showcasing their contributions to exploration. Recognizing their exploratory spirit enhances understanding of their role in shaping history. It reveals that Vikings were not merely violent marauders. They were also curious individuals seeking new opportunities and challenges. This duality makes their story even more compelling. What factors led to the decline of Viking raids? Conflicts and the consolidation of power in Europe reduced Viking influence significantly. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices among them, shifting the cultural landscape. Additionally, increased defenses and military strategies of other nations curtailed their raids. Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, illustrating changing dynamics in power. This decline showcases the complexities of history and the inevitable shifts in societal structures. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience? Viking sagas contain thrilling tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons that reflect their values and beliefs. These stories serve as cultural artifacts that provide insights into their worldview. Exploring these myths offers a richer understanding of their legacy, connecting you to their historical narratives. Engaging with these narratives allows you to appreciate the depth of Viking culture. It highlights the human experiences that shape their society and invites you to reflect on the lessons that can be learned from their stories. How can understanding their humanity change perceptions of Vikings? Recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations humanizes these historical figures. This approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions, dismantling the stereotype of Vikings as merely brutal raiders. Embracing their humanity fosters empathy and deeper engagement with history. It encourages you to view the past through a lens of understanding, recognizing the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. Elements of Viking culture are present in today's society. From shipbuilding techniques to language, the influence of Vikings is still felt today. Their values of courage, loyalty, and exploration resonate in modern culture, showing that their legacy continues to shape our world. This interconnectedness between past and present enriches your view of contemporary culture. Understanding these influences invites you to explore your roots and appreciate the stories that have shaped our shared history. What common myths about Vikings need to be debunked? Many myths, such as all Vikings were brutal or they wore horned helmets, still persist today. Challenging these misconceptions encourages a more accurate historical narrative, enhancing your knowledge of Vikings. This awareness promotes critical thinking about historical narratives, helping you navigate the complexities of Viking history. By examining these myths, you gain a deeper understanding of the realities behind the stories and can engage more meaningfully with the past. Why is it crucial to view Vikings within their historical context? Context helps explain the actions taken during their era, shedding light on societal pressures and challenges they faced. Understanding their environment allows for a more empathetic view of their actions, encouraging appreciation for the complexities of history. Contextual understanding enriches your learning experience, providing deeper insights into Viking culture. It invites you to consider the myriad factors that shape their society and the lessons that can be drawn from their history. How do modern perceptions of Vikings differ from the past? Today, Vikings are often glamorized or vilified in popular culture. Films and TV shows create skewed images of their true nature, blending fact with fiction. Analyzing these representations helps clarify what is real and what is dramatized. This understanding aids in fostering a more accurate portrayal of Viking history, revealing the ongoing fascination with their legacy. By exploring these modern perceptions, you can engage in deeper conversations about how history is interpreted and understood. Now that you've learned about the complexities of Viking culture and their reputation for brutality, you can engage in deeper conversations about their history and appreciate the richness of their contributions to society. Did Vikings really enjoy violence, or is it a misunderstanding? Most stories about Vikings come from their enemies, who often exaggerated their actions to paint them as savages. This raises an intriguing question. How much of the Viking image we know today is shaped by these exaggerated accounts? The term Viking originally referred to a person's occupation as a raider, rather than identifying a specific ethnic group. This means that the people we often label as Vikings were not solely warriors, but also engaged in farming, trade, and other peaceful occupations. Imagine a community where some individuals would take to the seas as raiders, while others cultivated the land and built homes. Vikings had a rich culture filled with art, poetry, and trade. They produced intricate metalwork, stunning wood carvings, and powerful sagas that told stories of gods and heroes. Yet, this cultural richness is often overshadowed by their violent reputation. Did you know that Viking poetry often contained themes of friendship and loyalty? This complexity reveals a society that was not solely focused on raiding and pillaging. Understanding these myths helps you see Vikings in a new light. While their fierce reputation is part of their story, it doesn't define their entire culture. Realizing that these narratives were often written by those who feared them can help you appreciate the nuances of Viking life. They were not merely bloodthirsty warriors. They were multifaceted individuals who contributed to the world around them in various ways. Now let's dive deeper into how Viking beliefs shape their actions. How did Viking mythology influence their worldview? Vikings believed in powerful gods like Odin, the Allfather, and Thor, the god of thunder. These deities represented war, strength, and the ideals of bravery, or in battle was paramount. They believed that dying gloriously in combat led to a place in Valhalla, the great hall where warriors would feast with the gods. This belief system encouraged a culture that valued bravery and the warrior ethos. It was not just about fighting, it was about proving oneself and gaining respect. But here's a curious fact. While they revered the warrior spirit, many Vikings also placed importance on wisdom and strategy. The stories of cunning and cleverness often rival those of brute strength. Understanding their spirituality reveals deeper motivations behind their actions. A Viking way of life was heavily influenced by their beliefs, driving them toward conflict but also fostering a sense of community and loyalty among them. This perspective complicates the notion of Vikings as simply violent raiders, showing that their actions were part of a larger, more intricate tapestry of culture and belief. So, were Vikings more traders than raiders? It's often easy to think of Vikings as just fierce warriors, but many were also skilled traders. They established extensive trade routes that connected Europe to Asia and beyond. Did you know that their trade networks facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture, making them important players in the economic landscape of their time? Many raids were strategically planned to gain wealth and resources, not just for destruction. This strategic mindset reveals their understanding of trade as a vital component of their society. It wasn't just about taking, it was also about sharing and interacting with other cultures. Their trade relationships with other cultures often led to mutual benefits. Vikings exchanged goods like fur, timber, and metalwork for silver, spices, and other valuable items. These interactions helped them to integrate into the broader world, creating connections that went beyond mere violence. How do historical records shape our perception of Vikings? Most accounts of Vikings come from those they invaded, which can create a biased narrative. These records often depicted Vikings as savage and uncivilized, influencing our understanding of their culture. Interestingly, many of the sagas written during the Viking Age tended to exaggerate tales of violence and conflict for dramatic effect. Recognizing these biases helps you question the reliability of historical narratives. If you only read accounts written by those who feared the Vikings, you'd miss the rich cultural heritage they contributed to Europe. Understanding this context reveals how history can be distorted by the perspectives of those telling the story. What about the role of geography in shaping Viking behavior? The rugged terrain of Scandinavia fostered resilience and adaptability among its people. people. Limited farmland created pressure to seek resources elsewhere, driving the Vikings to explore and raid. Did you know that the natural waterways in Scandinavia enhanced their travel and raiding abilities, allowing them to navigate swiftly through rivers and seas? Geography not only influenced their raids, but also shaped their relationships with other cultures. The harsh climate required ingenuity and determination, traits that defined Viking society. This connection illustrates how the environment played a crucial role in molding their behavior and worldview. What was the social structure during Viking warfare? Viking society was hierarchical, with chieftains leading groups of warriors. The leader was expected to be strong and courageous, earning the loyalty of his men. They used advanced shipbuilding techniques, allowing for quick and stealthy raids. Did you know that their long ships were designed to be both agile and stable, making them formidable in battle? Loyalty and camaraderie among warriors influenced their effectiveness in combat. The bond forged in battle was profound, as warriors fought not only for their chieftain but for each other. This social dynamic adds depth to their reputation, revealing that behind the fierce exterior was a tightly knit community working together for common goals. Did Viking warfare change over time? Absolutely. As they encountered different cultures and warfare techniques, their tactics evolved. They adapted to the defenses of their targets, which included fortified cities, showcasing their intelligence and strategic thinking. You might be surprised to learn that they even adopted some elements from their enemies, learning from their methods to remain competitive. Their ability to learn and adapt challenges the view of Vikings as mindless savages. Instead, they were strategic thinkers who understood the importance of flexibility in combat. Recognizing this evolution reveals that the Vikings were not just brutal warriors. They were also innovators who shaped their approach to warfare based on experience and observation. How did women influence Viking culture? Contrary to many historical narratives, women in Viking society had more rights than in many other cultures of the time. Some women were warriors, and a few even led raids, challenging traditional gender roles. This fact might surprise you. Women could own property, initiate divorce, and manage family affairs, showcasing their significant contributions to society. Understanding women's roles provides a fuller picture of Viking life. It highlights the complexities of their society, revealing that women were not passive figures, but active participants in both domestic and public spheres. This perspective adds depth to the narrative of Viking brutality, illustrating that their culture was multifaceted and not solely defined by male warriors. How does Viking culture influence us now? Modern Scandinavian cultures reflect Viking heritage in numerous ways. From language to traditions, the impact is still felt today. Interestingly, their myths and legends continue to inspire contemporary literature, movies, and art. This ongoing fascination showcases the lasting legacy of Viking civilization. Exploring this connection enriches your appreciation for Viking history and highlights the relevance of their culture in today's world. Understanding these influences invites you to engage with the past and recognize the significance of Viking contributions to our shared history. Were Vikings known only for their raids? Surprisingly, Vikings were also skilled navigators who explored beyond their homeland. They established settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, showcasing their adventurous spirit. This aspect of Viking life starkly contrasts their reputation for brutality, emphasizing that they were more than just raiders. Recognizing their exploratory endeavors enhances our understanding of their role in shaping history. They were not merely violent marauders, but curious individuals seeking new opportunities and challenges. This duality makes their story even more compelling and demonstrates the complexity of their society. What factors led to the decline of Viking raids? Internal conflicts and the consolidation of power in Europe reduced Viking influence significantly. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices, impacting their cultural landscape. Interestingly, as Europe became more organized and united, the once feared raiders found it increasingly difficult to sustain their way of life. Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, showcasing changing dynamics in power. The decline of the Vikings illustrates the complexities of history, revealing that even formidable cultures can evolve and transform over time. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience? King sagas contain thrilling tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons that reflect their values and beliefs. These narratives serve as cultural artifacts that provide insights into their worldview, highlighting the human experiences that shape their society. Engaging with these narratives allows you to appreciate the depth of Viking culture. It emphasizes the lessons that can be learned from their stories, inviting you to reflect on the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. How can understanding their humanity change perceptions of Vikings? Recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations humanizes these historical figures. This approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions, dismantling the stereotype of Vikings as merely brutal raiders. Embracing their humanity fosters empathy and deeper engagement with history. It encourages you to view the past through a lens of understanding, recognizing the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. What elements of Viking culture are present in today's society? From shipbuilding techniques to language, the influence of Vikings is still felt today. Their values of courage, loyalty, and exploration resonate in modern culture, illustrating their legacy in in contemporary society. This interconnectedness enriches your view of history, showing that the past continues to influence the present. Understanding these connections invites you to explore your roots and appreciate the stories that have shaped our shared history. What common myths about Vikings need to be debunked? Many myths, such as all Vikings were brutal or they wore horned helmets, still persist today. Challenging these misconceptions encourages a more accurate historical narrative, enhancing your knowledge of Vikings. This awareness promotes critical thinking about historical narratives, helping you navigate the complexities of Viking histories. By examining these myths, you gain a deeper understanding of the realities behind the stories and can engage more meaningfully with the past. Why is it crucial to view Vikings within their historical context? Did Vikings engage in more trading than raiding? Most people picture them as fierce marauders, but the reality is much more complex. As we explore this section, you'll discover how the Vikings were not just warriors, but also skilled traders who played a crucial role in the economies of their time. Vikings were indeed renowned for their raids across Europe, but many were also farmers and craftsmen who sought opportunities through trade. This duality raises an interesting point. Did you know that Vikings established extensive trade routes that connected regions as far apart as Europe, Asia, and the Middle East? Imagine the Viking longships gliding through rivers and oceans, laden with goods and materials that facilitated a vibrant exchange of culture and resources. They built trade networks that allowed them to share their goods and ideas with distant lands. From silver and spices to textiles and furs, the Vikings were part of a vast economic system. It wasn't just about taking what they wanted. They also engaged in mutual relationships with other cultures. You might find it surprising that many of their raids were strategic, designed to gain wealth and resources rather than mere acts of destruction. Let's delve into how these trade relationships often led to mutual benefits. For example, Viking traders would exchange furs and fish for silver or silk from the east. They established settlements along these trade routes, fostering communities where they could both raid and trade. This dual identity as traders and raiders illustrates the complexity of Viking society beyond just brutality. As we analyze the impact of historical accounts on our perception of the Vikings, we must consider, how do these records shape our understanding? Most of what we know about Vikings comes from accounts written by those they invaded, which can create a biased narrative. Often, these stories portray them as savage and uncivilized. Interestingly, many Viking sagas exaggerate tales of violence for dramatic effect. Recognizing these biases is crucial for questioning the reliability of historical narratives. The perspective from which history is written influences how we understand past cultures. For instance, while the Vikings are often depicted as barbaric, the truth lies in the rich cultural practices that went hand in hand with their raids. Understanding this context reveals how history can be distorted. Most people think of history as a linear series of events, but the reality is that each story is influenced by the storyteller's perspective. This understanding encourages you to look deeper into the sources and consider how biases can color our interpretation of history. Next, how did geography shape Viking actions? The rugged terrain of Scandinavia played a significant role in their development. Did you know that the limited farmland in this region fostered resilience and adaptability among the Vikings? In search of better resources, they were driven to explore and raid beyond their borders. Natural waterways were crucial for their travel and raiding capabilities. Viking longships were designed for speed and agility, enabling them to navigate rivers and coastal waters effectively. Imagine the Vikings sailing up the Seine River to reach Paris or the Thames to invade London, showcasing their remarkable maritime skills. The impact of geography extended beyond their raids. It also shaped their relationships with other cultures. The harsh climate required ingenuity and determination, traits that defined Viking society. The interplay between their environment and actions highlights how geography influenced not only their behavior, but also their interactions with others. Let's examine the structure of Viking society during warfare. Viking society was hierarchical, with chieftains leading groups of warriors. These leaders were expected to be strong and courageous, earning the loyalty of their followers. The organization of their society was key to their military effectiveness. Advanced shipbuilding techniques allowed them to conduct quick and stealthy raids. Their longships, crafted with precision, were a testament to their ingenuity. Did you know that these ships could navigate both open seas and shallow rivers? This adaptability gave them a tactical advantage in various situations. Loyalty and camaraderie among warriors greatly influenced their effectiveness in battle. The bond forged in combat was profound, as warriors fought not only for their chieftain but also for each other. This social dynamic adds depth to their reputation, revealing that behind the fierce exterior lay a tightly knit community working together toward common goals. As we explore whether Viking warfare changed over time, we find that tactics indeed evolved as they encountered different cultures and warfare techniques. The Vikings were not static in their approach. They learned and adapted to the defenses of their targets. Their ability to evolve as warriors challenges the stereotype of Vikings as mindless savages. Instead, they were strategic thinkers who understood the importance of flexibility in combat. Did you know that some Viking raids were so meticulously planned that they resembled modern military operations? This adaptability showcases their intelligence and resourcefulness. Now, let's shift our focus to the role of women in Viking society. society. Contrary to many historical narratives, women in Viking society had more rights than in many other cultures of the time. Some women were even warriors or led raids, challenging traditional gender roles. This fact might surprise you. Women could own property, initiate divorce, and manage family affairs. Their involvement in trade and decision-making was significant, impacting Viking society in meaningful ways. Understanding women's roles provides a fuller picture of Viking life, illustrating that their culture was multifaceted and not solely defined by male warriors. How does Viking culture influence us now? Modern Scandinavian cultures still reflect Viking heritage in various ways. Their myths and legends continue to inspire contemporary literature, movies, and art. You might be fascinated to learn that the enduring popularity of Viking stories in popular culture has sparked renewed interest in Viking history and culture. Exploring this connection enriches your appreciation for Viking history and highlights the relevance of their culture in today's world. Their legacy is a testament to the complex tapestry of human history, inviting you to engage with the past in a meaningful way. Were Vikings known only for their raids? Surprisingly, Vikings were also skilled navigators and explored far beyond their homeland. They established settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, showcasing their adventurous spirit. This aspect of Viking life starkly contrasts their reputation for brutality, emphasizing that they were more than just raiders. Recognizing their exploratory endeavors enhances our understanding of their role in shaping history. They were not merely violent marauders, but curious individuals seeking new opportunities and challenges. This duality makes their story even more compelling and demonstrates the complexity of their society. What factors led to the decline of Viking raids? Internal conflicts and the consolidation of power in Europe significantly reduced Viking influence. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices, impacting their cultural landscape. Interestingly, as Europe became more organized and united, the once feared raiders found it increasingly difficult to sustain their way of life. Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, showcasing changing dynamics in power. The decline of the Vikings illustrates the complexities of history, revealing that even formidable cultures can evolve and transform over time. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience? Viking sagas contain thrilling tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons that reflect their values and beliefs. These narratives serve as cultural artifacts that provide insights into their worldview, highlighting the human experiences that shape their society. Engaging with these narratives allows you to appreciate the depth of Viking culture. It emphasizes the lessons that can be learned from their stories, inviting you to reflect on the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. How can understanding their humanity change perceptions of Vikings? Recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations humanizes these historical figures. This approach allows for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions, dismantling the stereotype of Vikings as merely brutal raiders. Embracing their humanity fosters empathy and deeper engagement with history. It encourages you to view the past through a lens of understanding, recognizing the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. What elements of Viking culture are present in today's society? From shipbuilding techniques to language, the influence of Vikings is still felt today. Their values of courage, loyalty, and exploration resonate in modern culture, illustrating their legacy in contemporary society. This interconnectedness enriches your view of history, showing that the past continues to influence the present. Understanding these connections invites you to explore your roots and appreciate the stories that have shaped our shared history. What common myths about Vikings need to be debunked? Many myths, such as all Vikings were brutal or they wore horned helmets, still persist today. Challenging these misconceptions encourages a more accurate historical narrative, enhancing your knowledge of Vikings. This awareness promotes critical thinking about historical narratives, helping you navigate the complexities of Viking history. By examining these myths, you gain a deeper understanding of the realities behind the stories and can engage more meaningfully with the past. Why is it crucial to view Vikings within their historical context? Context helps explain the actions taken during their era, shedding light on societal pressures and challenges they faced. Understanding their environment allows for a more empathetic view of their actions, encouraging appreciation for the complexities of history. Contextual understanding enriches your learning experience. It empowers you to connect with the past in a meaningful way, highlighting the nuances that define cultures across time. As we look back on the Viking legacy, it becomes clear that their story is far more intricate than mere brutality, inviting you to explore the rich tapestry of human history. Did you know that much of what we think we know about Vikings comes from the very people they invaded? Most historical accounts about Vikings originate from their enemies, and these narratives often painted them as savage and uncivilized. It's a common misconception that all Vikings were bloodthirsty raiders with no culture. But what if I told you that understanding the biases in these accounts can significantly change your perception of Viking society? Historically, the word Viking was more than just a title. It originally referred to a person's occupation, particularly a raider or a trader. This distinction is critical because it shows that the Vikings were not merely defined by their raids. There were also farmers, craftsmen, and traders who established trade networks across Europe. However, the accounts from those who who fell victim to their raids often exaggerated their actions, making them seem far more brutal than they might have been. For example, tales of Viking pillaging were passed down through generations, often embellished for dramatic effect. Did you know that some sagas, the legendary stories of their conquest, were written centuries after the events they describe? These narratives were not just for entertainment, they served to unify the community against a common enemy. This creates a perception of savagery that can overshadow their rich cultural practices. As we unravel the impact of these historical accounts, it becomes evident that bias plays a crucial role in shaping our understanding of the Vikings. The narratives we receive are filtered through the lenses of those who wrote them, often with the intent of instilling fear or maintaining control. Recognizing these biases is essential for questioning the reliability of historical narratives. By doing so, you can begin to separate fact from fiction, which is crucial for a well-rounded understanding of Viking history. Now let's consider how the context of these historical accounts reveals how history can be distorted. Most people think of history as a straightforward recounting of events, but the reality is that it's often a complex interplay of perspectives. This means that many of the so-called brutal acts of Vikings might not be as clear-cut as they appear. What about the geography that shaped Viking actions? The rugged and often harsh terrain of Scandinavia played a significant role in the Vikings' lifestyle. Did you know that the limited farmland forced many Vikings to seek wealth and resources elsewhere? The harsh northern climate fostered resilience and adaptability, traits that defined Viking culture. Natural waterways were also crucial for their travel and raiding capabilities. The design of Viking longships allowed them to navigate shallow rivers and open seas alike, making them formidable in both raiding and trading. This adaptability was vital for their survival and expansion. The geographical landscape not only facilitated their raids but also influenced their relationships with neighboring cultures. For instance, the close proximity of trading partners often meant the Vikings would engage in both raiding and trading, highlighting the duality of their society. Understanding how geography influenced their behavior adds another layer of complexity to our view of the Vikings. Now let's take a closer look at the structure of Viking society. Viking society was hierarchical, with chieftains leading groups of warriors. Did you know that these leaders were expected to display exceptional bravery and leadership? Loyalty and camaraderie were essential among warriors, which significantly influenced their effectiveness in battle. Viking warriors fought not only for their chieftains, but also for each other, creating a strong sense of brotherhood. This dynamic added depth to their reputation as fierce fighters. The advanced shipbuilding techniques they employed for quick, stealthy raids were also a testament to their ingenuity. Understanding the social structure during Viking warfare provides valuable insight into their military strategies. These leaders utilized their knowledge of terrain and tactics to gain advantages in battle, demonstrating that the Vikings were not just mindless raiders, but strategic thinkers as well. Now, did Viking warfare change over time? Absolutely. Tactics of the Vikings evolved as they encountered different cultures and warfare techniques. Many people assume that Vikings adhered to the same methods throughout their existence, but this couldn't be further from the truth. As they faced stronger defenses and new adversaries, they adapted their tactics accordingly. For example, they learned to overcome fortified cities, showcasing their strategic flexibility. This adaptability challenges the common perception of Vikings as brutal and unchanging. Acknowledging this evolution in warfare reveals their ability to learn from others and adjust their strategies for success. Let's now shift our focus to the role of women in Viking society. Contrary to popular belief, women in Viking culture had more rights than many other cultures of the time. Did you know that women could own property, initiate divorce, and even engage in trade? This progressive structure allowed some women to become warriors or lead raids, challenging the traditional gender roles of the period. Understanding women's roles in Viking society offers a fuller picture of their culture. Women were not just passive figures, but active participants who contributed to both economic and military efforts. This perspective adds much-needed depth to the narrative surrounding Viking brutality, revealing that their society was more complex than the stereotype suggests. Now let's explore how Viking culture influences us today. Modern Scandinavian cultures still reflect Viking heritage in various ways. From language to traditions, their myths and legends have inspired countless works of literature, movies, and art, demonstrating the lasting impact of Viking culture on contemporary society. Fascination with Viking history has led to an increased interest in their stories and practices. This legacy is not just about raiding, it showcases their contributions to trade, exploration, and cultural exchange. Engaging with this connection enriches your appreciation for history, emphasizing the importance of understanding past civilizations. Were Vikings known only for their raids? Far from it. They were also skilled navigators who explored beyond their homeland. Vikings established settlements in Iceland, Greenland, and even ventured to North America, challenging the boundaries of the known world during their time. This adventurous spirit stands in stark contrast to their brutal reputation. Recognizing their exploratory endeavors enhances our understanding of their contributions to global history. They were not merely bloodthirsty marauders, but curious individuals seeking new opportunities and challenges. As we consider the factors that led to the decline of Viking power, we find that internal conflicts and the consolidation of power in Europe played significant significant roles. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices, further altering their cultural landscape. Did you know that as Europe became more organized and united, the once feared raiders struggled to sustain their way of life? Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, showcasing how even the most formidable cultures can evolve and transform over time. This decline reflects the changing dynamics of power and the complexities of human history. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience? Viking sagas contain thrilling tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons that reflect their values and beliefs. These narratives offer rich insights into their worldview and cultural practices, emphasizing the human experiences that shape their society. Engaging with these narratives allows you to appreciate the depth of Viking culture. It emphasizes the lessons that can be learned from their stories, inviting you to reflect on the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. Finally, how can understanding their humanity change perceptions of Vikings? Recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations humanizes these historical figures, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions. This approach helps dismantle the stereotype of Vikings as merely brutal raiders, fostering empathy and a deeper engagement with history. By embracing their humanity, you can view the past through a lens of understanding, recognizing the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. The legacy of the Vikings is complex and multifaceted, inviting you to explore the rich tapestry of human history and appreciate the intricacies of their culture. Did you know that the rugged landscape of Scandinavia significantly influenced Viking behavior and culture? The geography of this region played a critical role in shaping who the Vikings were and how they interacted with the world around them. Most people think of Vikings solely as raiders, but the reality is much more complex. Their environment not only dictated their survival strategies, but also their relationships with neighboring cultures. Scandinavia is characterized by its harsh climates, rocky terrain, and extensive waterways. This rugged landscape fostered resilience and adaptability among the Viking people. Picture this, living in a place where farming is a struggle due to short growing seasons and poor soil. How do you thrive in such an environment? For many Vikings, the answer lay in both raiding and trading. Limited farmland forced them to look beyond their shores for sustenance and wealth. Natural waterways, like rivers and fjords, served as highways for the Vikings. They developed advanced shipbuilding techniques that allowed them to navigate these waters efficiently. Their longships were marvels of engineering, designed for speed and flexibility, enabling them to raid coastal towns or travel vast distances for trade. This adaptability was crucial for their survival and expansion. As the Vikings ventured beyond their homelands, they established trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, and beyond. Did you know that they traded not just in goods but also in ideas and technologies? The Vikings interacted with a diverse array of cultures, which profoundly influenced their society. These exchanges helped shape their views on trade and warfare, demonstrating that they were not merely bloodthirsty marauders but strategic thinkers. Geography also influenced the Vikings' relationships with other cultures. Their proximity to various civilizations meant they could engage in both raiding and trading. Some Viking settlements developed into bustling trading hubs, showcasing the duality of their existence. They were not just warriors, they were also skilled merchants who understood the value of trade. This complexity challenges the simplistic view of Vikings as one-dimensional characters. Moreover, the Vikings' geographical location made them well-positioned to tap into various trade networks. From precious metals to exotic goods, they established connections with societies as far-flung as the Byzantine Empire and the Middle East. Did you know that Vikings brought back not only treasures but also knowledge, learning advanced techniques in crafting, navigation, and trade? This geographical interconnectedness illustrates the impact of the environment on Viking society, highlights the ways in which they adapted to and thrived within their surroundings. Understanding this connection helps us appreciate the intricacies of Viking life, moving beyond the notion of them as mere raiders. Let's take a closer look at the social structure during Viking warfare. Viking society was hierarchical, with chieftains at the top leading groups of warriors. Did you know that these leaders were expected to display exceptional bravery and leadership? Loyalty and camaraderie were essential among warriors, significantly influencing their effectiveness in battle. This social dynamic added depth to their reputation as fierce fighters. Viking warriors fought not only for their chieftains but also for each other. This strong sense of brotherhood fostered a culture of mutual respect and loyalty. These warriors were trained from a young age in the art of combat, honing their skills to protect their community. Understanding their social structure provides insight into their military strategies, revealing a layer of complexity in their approach to warfare. Vikings were skilled navigators who explored far beyond their homeland. Were they known only for their raids? Absolutely not. They established settlements in Iceland, Greenland, and even ventured to North America, challenging the boundaries of the known world during their time. This adventurous spirit stands in stark contrast to their brutal reputation, highlighting the multifaceted nature of Viking life. Their exploratory endeavors contributed significantly to the map of the medieval world. While many view them as fierce raiders, it's essential to recognize their role as explorers who sought new opportunities and challenges. This exploration illustrates their curious nature and willingness to adapt to new environments, further complicating the stereotype of the brutal Viking Viking warrior. As we delve into the decline of Viking power, we must consider the internal conflicts that arose. Did you know that as Europe became more organized and united, the once feared raiders struggled to sustain their way of life? Internal strife and the consolidation of power reduced Viking influence significantly. The spread of Christianity transformed societal norms and practices, creating an era of change that impacted their traditional beliefs and lifestyle. Understanding these factors provides insight into the end of an era, showcasing how even the most formidable cultures can evolve and transform over time. The decline of Viking power highlights changing dynamics in power and the complexities of human history. When we think of Viking myths and legends, we uncover tales of bravery, adventure, and moral lessons. Did you know that Viking sagas serve as cultural artifacts, providing insights into their worldview? These narratives reflect the values and beliefs of Viking society, illustrating their understanding of honor, loyalty, and fate. Engaging with these narratives connects you to their history, allowing for a richer understanding of Viking culture. Exploring these myths offers a deeper appreciation for the stories that shape their identity, emphasizing the lessons that can be learned from their experiences. Recognizing the struggles, fears, and aspirations of Vikings humanizes these historical figures, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of their motivations and actions. This approach dismantles the stereotype of Vikings as merely brutal raiders and fosters empathy towards diverse cultures. By embracing their humanity, you can view the past through a lens of understanding, recognizing the shared experiences that connect all cultures across time. The legacy of the Vikings is complex and multifaceted, inviting you to explore the rich tapestry of human history and appreciate the intricacies of their culture. Understanding their geographical context, societal structure, and historical narratives allows for a more comprehensive view of who the Vikings were, beyond the surface-level brutality often associated with them. So, what does this mean for our perception of Vikings today? As we navigate through their history, remember that every raider was also a traitor, every warrior was part of a community, and every story was a lesson for future generations. Did you know that Viking society was structured much like a complex web of relationships and hierarchies? Most people think Vikings operated solely as raiders, but the reality is far more nuanced. The intricate social structure of Viking society was not just about warfare. It involved loyalty, community, and a sense of shared purpose that influenced their actions and reputation. At the top of this hierarchy were the chieftains, powerful leaders who commanded respect and loyalty. These chieftains were responsible for leading groups of warriors into battle and making critical decisions for their communities. Interestingly, many chieftains gained their status not only through inheritance, but also by demonstrating exceptional bravery and skill in combat. This raises a question: what qualities made a Viking leader truly great? Beneath the chieftains were the warriors, the backbone of Viking society. Loyalty among warriors was paramount. They trained together from a young age, developing strong bonds that would carry them into battle. Did you know that a warrior's reputation was crucial for their standing in society? A warrior who fought bravely and successfully would gain honor and prestige, while failure could lead to disgrace. This environment fostered a culture where each warrior was motivated to excel, driven by the desire to uphold their reputation and support their comrades. The shipbuilding techniques of the Vikings also played a significant role in their military effectiveness. Their longships were designed for speed, flexibility, and stealth, allowing for quick raids and retreat. Imagine navigating the treacherous waters of the North Sea in one of these finely crafted vessels, the waves crashing against the hull as you prepare for an unexpected strike. This remarkable craftsmanship not only facilitated their raids, but also allowed for extensive trading ventures, demonstrating the duality of Viking life. As we delve deeper, it's essential to understand that Viking society wasn't solely focused on raiding and warfare. They also valued trade and craftsmanship. In fact, many Vikings were skilled artisans and traders, establishing trade routes that connected Europe, Asia, and beyond. This aspect of their society often gets overshadowed by their reputation as brutal warriors, but it showcases the complexity of their culture. Trade relationships were crucial for the Vikings, as they exchanged goods like furs, timber, and iron for silver, silk, and spices. Did you know that Viking traders even traveled as far as the Byzantine Empire and the Arab world? These interactions led to the flow of ideas and technologies, enriching Viking culture in ways that are often overlooked. Understanding this trade network provides a fuller picture of the societal dynamics at play during the Viking Age. While they engaged in raiding, many Viking raids were carefully planned strategic moves aimed at gaining wealth and resources, rather than sheer destruction. A surprising fact is that some of these raids were actually joint ventures with local communities, where mutual benefits were sought. The line between raiding and trading blurred at times, illustrating the adaptability of Viking society. The Viking legacy is often colored by historical narratives that emphasize their violent raids. However, examining the impact of historical accounts reveals a more complex truth. Most of what we know about Vikings comes from their enemies, those who faced the brunt of their raids. These accounts often painted the Vikings as savage and uncivilized, creating a one-dimensional view that fails to capture their true essence. In these historical narratives is crucial for understanding the Vikings accurately. Many Viking sagas, written long after the events they describe, exaggerated tales of violence for dramatic effect. This selective storytelling raises questions about reliability. By questioning these sources, we can peel back layers of distortion to reveal a more authentic picture of Viking life. Understanding the context in which these narratives were created allows us to appreciate the complexities of Viking society. The environment, culture, and interactions with neighboring civilizations shaped their identity, creating a rich tapestry of experiences that go beyond mere brutality. Now let's examine how geography influenced Viking behavior. Scandinavia's rugged terrain was both a challenge and an advantage. The limited farmland forced Vikings to be resourceful, seeking wealth through raids and trade, rather than relying solely on agriculture. This need for survival fostered a sense of competition and resilience among the Viking people. Natural waterways were crucial for Viking expansion, enabling them to travel swiftly for both raiding and trading. Imagine a Viking longship cutting through the misty waters of a fjord, its sleek design allowing for stealthy approaches to unsuspecting settlements. These waterways facilitated not only military operations but also cultural exchanges, shaping how Vikings interacted with neighboring cultures. Geography significantly impacted Viking relationships with other civilizations. Their ability to navigate waterways and establish trade routes made them key players in the medieval economy. Interestingly, the Vikings often formed alliances with local rulers to enhance their trading efforts, illustrating their diplomatic skills. This connection between geography and Viking behavior showcases how environment shapes culture and actions. Their adaptability to their surroundings was not just a matter of survival, it influenced their entire way of life, from trade to warfare. As we navigate through the structure of Viking society, we see that loyalty and camaraderie among warriors were vital for success in battle. This social dynamic added depth to their reputation as fierce fighters. The bond formed among warriors was akin to a brotherhood, reinforcing the importance of trust and collaboration. The Vikings' military strategies were shaped by their hierarchical society. Each warrior understood their role, contributing to the effectiveness of the group. The sense of loyalty fostered a commitment to one another, creating a formidable fighting force that could take on larger armies. As we explore the evolution of Viking warfare, we find that tactics changed over time. Vikings were not static in their approach. They adapted to the challenges posed by different cultures and warfare techniques. The ability to learn from their adversaries is a testament to their intelligence and strategic thinking. When encountering fortified cities, for example, Vikings developed new tactics to breach defenses. This adaptability challenges the stereotype of Vikings as mindless savages, showing them as tactical innovators. Acknowledging this evolution not only enriches our understanding of Viking warfare, but also underscores their complexity as a culture. In the next part of our exploration, we must recognize the role of women in Viking society. Did you know that women in Viking culture often had more rights than in many other cultures of their time? This is a surprising fact that many people overlook when considering Viking life. Some women even took on the role of warriors, leading raids and challenging traditional gender norms. Their involvement in trade and decision-making was significant, providing a fuller picture of Viking life that defies simplistic narratives. Understanding women's roles in this society offers depth to the narrative of Viking culture and its complexities. Through this exploration, we see how the multifaceted nature of Viking society continues to resonate through history. The legacy of the Vikings is not solely defined by their raids, but encompasses a rich tapestry of experiences, interactions, and cultural exchanges that shape their world. As we conclude this segment, remember that the Vikings were not just warriors. They were traders, explorers, and complex individuals who navigated a challenging world with adaptability and resilience. By recognizing these facets, we can appreciate the richness of their contributions to history and engage in deeper conversations about their impact on society. Did you know that Viking warfare was not static, but rather an evolving practice shaped by their encounters with different cultures? Most people think of Vikings solely as brutal raiders, but the reality reveals a far more nuanced and adaptive approach to warfare. The Vikings were strategic thinkers who constantly modified their tactics to stay ahead of their opponents. As Viking society spread, their military strategies evolved dramatically. Initially, Vikings relied on swift raids that targeted unprotected coastal villages. However, as they encountered more fortified settlements and organized defenses, they adapted their tactics accordingly. Imagine a group of Viking warriors, accustomed to quick strikes, now needing to employ cunning and creativity to breach formidable walls. This adaptation is a crucial aspect of their military evolution. An interesting fact is that the Viking Age saw significant changes in weaponry and armor. Early on, Vikings predominantly used simple weapons like axes and spears. As they began to encounter more advanced armies, they adopted new technologies, including swords and shields from other cultures. This willingness to learn and adopt innovations showcases their strategic mindset. Did you know that the Vikings even crafted their weapons with a specific technique called pattern welding? This method not only enhanced the durability of their swords, but also produced beautiful, intricate designs that reflected their craftsmanship. Another key element in Viking warfare was the importance of intelligence and reconnaissance. Rather than charging blindly into battle, Viking leaders often sent scouts ahead to gather information about enemy positions and defenses. This practice allowed them to plan their attacks more effectively, increasing their chances of success. For instance, the famous siege Siege of Paris in 845 was marked by careful planning, where Viking chieftain Ragnar Lothbrok used intelligence to exploit weaknesses in the city's defenses. Yet it wasn't just about direct confrontations. The Vikings also understood the value of psychological warfare. Their fearsome reputation, fueled by tales of brutal raids, was a tool in itself. By projecting an image of savagery and invincibility, they could intimidate enemies into submission without a fight. Most people think that fear tactics are a modern invention, but Vikings were masters of this ancient art long before social media existed. As we analyze the evolution of Viking warfare, we cannot overlook their adaptability to different combat environments. In the early years, their tactics revolved around the open seas, utilizing their advanced longships for quick strikes. However, as they ventured further into Europe, they faced diverse terrains, from forests to mountains. This geographical diversity forced them to modify their strategies, adapting to each environment's unique challenges. Interestingly, the Vikings didn't just raid, they often negotiated with their enemies. This pragmatic approach is evident in many historical accounts, where Vikings traded rather than fought when it served their interests. Did you know that during the summer of 1000, Viking leaders negotiated a truce with the local tribes in the British Isles, allowing for peaceful trade routes? This blend of diplomacy and warfare showcases the Vikings as multifaceted actors on the medieval stage. To grasp the full picture of Viking warfare, we must also consider the social dynamics at play. Loyalty and camaraderie among warriors significantly influenced their effectiveness in battle. Viking warriors fought not only for their chieftain, but also for each other. The bond formed among these men was akin to a brotherhood, reinforcing the importance of trust and collaboration. This deep-seated loyalty often led to acts of bravery that would become legendary, illustrating how personal relationships intertwined with military success. Moreover, their belief system played a crucial role in shaping their martial cultures. The notion of dying a glorious death in battle to reach Valhalla was not just a belief, it was a motivator that fueled their fearlessness in combat. This cultural context is essential in understanding why Viking warriors were willing to face overwhelming odds. A little-known fact is that many Viking warriors would chant or sing before battle, creating a sense of unity and purpose that further solidified their resolve. The technological advancements in warfare during the Viking Age also cannot be ignored. They developed innovative strategies that incorporated new siege tactics and weaponry as they interacted with other cultures. The Siege of Paris, for example, saw Vikings employing innovative tactics that included the use of siege engines to breach walls, a practice they learned from their encounters with the Frankish forces. In conclusion, the evolution of Viking warfare is a testament to their adaptability and strategic mindset. They were not merely brutal raiders, but sophisticated warriors who continuously evolved their tactics in response to the challenges they faced. Understanding this evolution challenges the traditional narrative of Vikings as one-dimensional figures and invites us to appreciate the complexities of their martial culture. This rich history reveals a society that valued not just strength in battle, but also intelligence, innovation, and community bonds, enriching our understanding of who the Vikings truly were. Did you know that Viking society was more than just a band of raiders and warriors? In fact, women played a crucial role that challenges many stereotypes we hold about Vikings today. Most people think that Viking women were merely passive figures in a male-dominated society, but the reality is strikingly different. They were not just caregivers. Some were warriors, traders, and even leaders in their own right. While Vikings are often romanticized as fierce warriors, the societal structure revealed a complex hierarchy where women could wield considerable influence. For example, many Viking women managed their households, oversaw land, and took part in trade when their husbands were away on raids. This highlights a surprising fact. Some women even took the helm in battles, leading troops into combat, a reality that seems to contradict the typical image of Viking life. An interesting aspect of Viking society was their view of marriage and family. Marriages were often arranged, but women could initiate divorce, a practice that was relatively uncommon in many contemporary societies. This allowed them a degree of agency that is often overlooked in historical accounts. Did you know that some sagas even depict women taking up arms when their husbands were absent, thereby defending their homes and families? Another key point to consider is the role of women in trade. Viking women were active in the marketplace, dealing in goods that ranged from textiles to precious metals. They often took charge of trade networks, utilizing their social connections to strengthen familial ties and enhance their communities' wealth. This leads to the realization that trade was not solely a male endeavor. Women were integral to the economic stability of their society. Despite these empowering roles, the narrative around Viking women often remains limited. Most history books focus heavily on male warriors, overshadowing the contributions and experiences of women. This bias in historical representation prompts us to ask, why do we tend to overlook the powerful stories of women in Viking culture? Recognizing this oversight enriches our understanding of Viking society and forces us to confront our own assumptions about gender roles in history. It's important to note that Viking women had varying statuses based on their social class. While noble women might have enjoyed more privileges, those from lower classes also found ways to assert their independence. For instance, some women ran farms and managed finances, which was crucial in the absence of men during raiding seasons. This reflects a societal flexibility that allowed women to adapt to the challenges of their environment. A lesser-known fact is that there were specific burial rites for women warriors, indicating their recognized status in society. Archaeological findings, such as graves containing weapons alongside female remains, suggest that some women were indeed warriors. The presence of these items in their graves offers profound insight into the perception of women in Viking culture and challenges the notion that only men could attain warrior status. Furthermore, the legal status of women in Viking society was relatively advanced for the time. They could own property, inherit land, and control their destiny. This legal framework allowed women to navigate their rights within a patriarchal system, emphasizing their significant role in maintaining family wealth and property. This stands in stark contrast to many societies where women had few, if any, rights regarding ownership. As we delve deeper into Viking society, it becomes evident that the relationships between men and women were marked by a balance of power, albeit one that still favored men in many aspects. Yet the resilience and resourcefulness of Viking women illustrate a dynamic that contradicts simplistic narratives of oppression. In examining the legacy of Viking women today, we find a growing interest in their stories. Modern portrayals in films, books, and documentaries increasingly highlight their contributions, inviting audiences to reconsider what we think we know about Viking culture. The evolving narrative not only honors the women of the Viking Age, but also encourages a broader understanding of gender roles throughout history. In conclusion, the role of women in Viking society is a fascinating and complex topic that challenges our preconceived notions of what life was like during the Viking Age. These women were not just passive figures. They were influential, resourceful, and integral to the fabric of their communities. Acknowledging their contributions adds depth to our understanding of Viking culture, encouraging us to appreciate the multifaceted nature of history and the individuals who shaped it. How does Viking culture continue to resonate in our modern world? You might be surprised to learn that the impact of the Vikings is woven into various aspects of our lives today, from language and literature to our understanding of trade and exploration. This video will explore how the legacy of the Vikings still influences us and what we can learn from their fascinating history. Modern Scandinavian cultures reflect the Vikings' heritage in countless ways. For instance, many Scandinavian languages contain words that trace back to Old Norse, the language of the Vikings. Did you know that the word berserk comes from the Viking warriors who wore bear skins into battle? This term has evolved to describe someone who goes into a frenzied state, yet its roots lie in the formidable image of Viking warriors. The enduring fascination with Viking myths and legends has inspired countless works of literature, movies, and television series. Characters like Thor and Loki have found their way into contemporary pop culture, illustrating how these ancient stories continue to captivate our imaginations. But most people think these stories are purely fantasy. The reality is that they were steeped in the values, beliefs, and daily lives of the Viking people, offering a glimpse into their worldview. A strange fact that may surprise you is that the Vikings were not just warriors, they were also exceptional craftsmen and traders. They established extensive trade networks that connected Europe, Asia, and beyond, which in turn influenced the economies and cultures of the regions they encountered. This dual identity as both fierce raiders and skilled traders complicates the simplistic view of Vikings as mere brutes. It's a controversial point, but some historians argue that without the Vikings' expansive trade networks, Europe might not have developed as swiftly or as robustly during the Middle Ages. Understanding Viking culture today also means recognizing their influence on modern values, such as courage, loyalty, and exploration. These ideals resonate through countless stories and encourage a sense of adventure and community. The Viking Age was marked by exploration and discovery, with the Norse venturing as far as North America long before Columbus. This spirit of exploration is mirrored in today's society, where adventure and discovery are still valued traits. Another key aspect of Viking legacy lies in their approach to law and governance. The Viking Thing, an assembly of free men that would meet to make decisions, represents one of the earliest forms of democratic governance. This practice shows how they valued collective decision-making and community involvement, principles that are echoed in modern democratic systems. The fact that the Vikings established such a structure during their time raises the question, can we trace our democratic roots back to these fierce warriors? As we delve deeper into Viking exploration, we find that they were not just raiders, but navigators who explored vast territories. The Viking sagas speak of journeys across the North Atlantic, establishing settlements in places like Iceland, Greenland, and even parts of North America long before other European explorers arrived. This adventurous spirit is a testament to their resilience and adaptability, qualities that still inspire explorers and adventurers today. While the Vikings may be remembered for their raids, their exploration was equally significant and demonstrated a willingness to engage with new cultures and environments. For instance, they established trade routes that facilitated cultural exchanges, allowing them to acquire new technologies, goods, and ideas. This blend of conquest and commerce shows how interconnected the Viking world was, challenging the notion that they were merely brutish invaders. Moreover, the impact of Viking culture extends to modern-day practices. The craft of shipbuilding, particularly their advanced longships, has influenced maritime technology throughout history. These ships allowed them to to navigate rivers and oceans alike, showcasing their ingenuity. The principles behind Viking shipbuilding continue to inform modern boat construction, proving that the Vikings' innovations have left a lasting mark on our world. The way Viking culture has been romanticized and adapted in modern media also reflects our collective fascination with their legacy. Films and TV shows often portray them as heroic figures, romanticizing their adventures and battles. This portrayal serves as a double-edged sword, both honoring their achievements and potentially overshadowing the complexities of their society. Understanding this context allows us to appreciate the multifaceted nature of their culture. The enduring legacy of the Vikings is not without its challenges. Many misconceptions persist, such as the idea that all Vikings were brutal or that they wore horned helmets. By addressing these myths, we can foster a more accurate understanding of their society. Engaging with history in this way encourages critical thinking and allows us to explore the nuances of Viking life. In conclusion, the legacy of Viking culture is a rich tapestry that continues to influence our lives today. From language and literature to governance and exploration, the impact of the Vikings is undeniable. By studying their history, we not only gain insight into a fascinating culture, but also learn valuable lessons about courage, community, and the human spirit. Embracing this legacy allows us to engage in deeper conversations about our own histories and how they shape the world we live in today. How did women influence Viking culture, and why is their role often overlooked? While most people envision Vikings as fierce warriors, the reality is that Viking women played a significant part in shaping their society. In this section, we will explore the important roles women held in Viking culture, challenging the traditional narrative that has often sidelined them. Let's start with a surprising fact. Viking women had more rights than women in many other cultures during that time. They could own property, initiate divorce, and manage their household. This empowerment set them apart from their contemporaries in much of Europe, where women were often seen primarily as property of their fathers or husbands. It's a little-known fact that women in Viking society could even inherit land, which was uncommon in many other cultures. One interesting question arises here. How did this legal and social standing affect the Viking worldview? The presence of empowered women in Viking culture likely fostered a more egalitarian approach within their communities. This dynamic encouraged collaboration and mutual respect between genders, challenging the stereotype of Viking society as purely patriarchal. It's controversial to say, but the Viking lifestyle necessitated this partnership for survival, especially in harsh northern climates. Consider this: while Viking men went raiding or trading, women often managed the farms and homes, maintaining the economic backbone of their communities. Women oversaw the household and held the key to its prosperity, as they were responsible for food production, weaving, and even family finances. This responsibility was crucial, as it allowed the men to focus on their roles as warriors and traders, knowing their families were cared for. Strangely enough, some women even took on roles traditionally reserved for men. Historical records and sagas tell tales of women who fought alongside men, known as shield maidens. One of the most famous is Lagertha, who is said to have fought bravely in battles alongside her husband, the legendary hero Ragnar Lothbrok. However, many might argue that such stories are exaggerated or mythologized. Yet, archaeological findings have uncovered grave sites of women buried with weapons, suggesting that some women indeed participated in combat. This challenges our understanding of gender roles in Viking culture and invites us to reconsider how women's contributions were perceived. Another point to consider is the political power wielded by Viking women. They could serve as key decision-makers within their communities and were often influential in political alliances through marriage. Marriages among the elite were strategic, forging ties between powerful families and consolidating power. A famous example is Queen Emma of Normandy, whose marriages to two different kings, Athelred the Unready and Canute the Great, positioned her as a pivotal figure in the political landscape of England and Denmark. Moreover, Viking women were involved in trade as well, contributing to the economy by managing trade routes and engaging with other cultures. This is significant because it highlights their agency in a society that is often portrayed as solely male-dominated. The trade relationships that women maintained helped facilitate cultural exchanges, further enriching Viking society and its interactions with others. Yet, as we explore these contributions, it's essential to address the narrative surrounding Viking women. While many accounts celebrate their empowerment, there are also misconceptions. For instance, the image of the submissive Viking woman often persists, overshadowing the reality of their active roles in society. This stereotype can diminish the true complexity of their experiences and contributions. By understanding the significant roles women played in Viking society, we begin to paint a more accurate picture of this fascinating culture. The empowerment and agency of Viking women reflect broader themes of resilience and adaptability that characterized the Viking Age. As we continue to examine this topic, we encourage you to think critically about the narrative surrounding Viking culture and how they shape our understanding today. In summary, Viking women were more than mere supporters of their warrior counterparts. They were integral to the survival and prosperity of their communities. By recognizing their rights, responsibilities, and contributions, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of Viking culture. The legacy of these women continues to resonate today, challenging us to reassess assess historical narratives and the roles of women throughout history. As we move forward, keep in mind the profound impact that these women had in shaping not only their society, but also the very fabric of Viking legacy. What factors led to the decline of Viking power, and why is this often overlooked in discussions about their legacy? Most people think of the Vikings as relentless warriors, but the reality is that their decline was influenced by a complex interplay of internal conflicts and external pressures. In this section, we will delve into the multifaceted reasons behind the decline of Viking raids and their overall power, revealing a more nuanced understanding of their history. To begin, let's consider this intriguing fact. By the end of the Viking Age in the 11th century, many Viking territories were transitioning from raiding to more settled forms of governance. This transformation often meant that former raiders were becoming integrated into the societies they once invaded. It's a little-known fact that some Vikings settled in the lands they had previously plundered, marrying local women and adopting local customs. This cultural assimilation marked a significant shift from their earlier identities as invaders to more established community members. One key factor in the decline of Viking raids was the consolidation of power in Europe. As kingdoms like England and France began to strengthen their military and political structures, they developed better defenses against Viking attacks. For instance, after the disastrous Viking siege of Paris in 845, the French King Charles the Bald implemented strategic military reforms, creating fortified towns that significantly hindered future raids. Many might argue that Vikings were simply too brutal to adapt, but the truth is that they encountered increasingly organized and formidable foes, making their traditional raiding tactics less effective. Another major influence on Viking decline was the spread of Christianity across Europe. As Viking society began to convert to Christianity, this transformation brought about changes in values and social structures. Vikings, who once prided themselves on their warrior ethos, began to embrace more peaceful forms of life. Ironically, some historians argue that this shift weakened their warrior culture, as they focused on trade and settlement rather than raids. This presents a controversial point. Did the adoption of Christianity ultimately lead to the Vikings' downfall as a distinct culture of warriors? It's worth pondering how faith can reshape identities. Internal conflicts also played a crucial role in the decline of Viking power. The unity that once characterized Viking expeditions began to fracture as individual chieftains and clans vied for power. This infighting often detracted from their collective strength, making it easier for other European powers to resist Viking raids. Imagine a once powerful raider who now finds themselves unable to gather support from rival factions. This is the reality many Vikings faced in the later years. The consequence of these divisions was a diminished ability to launch large-scale raids and sustain their empire. Economic shifts further complicated their situation. As European economies grew stronger and more interconnected, the allure of raiding began to diminish in favor of trade. The Vikings were not simply warriors, they were also traders who established extensive trade routes. Yet as local markets developed, the need for raiding as a means of wealth accumulation decreased. The controversial reality is that the Vikings' transition from raiding to trading was a double-edged sword. It enriched their culture but also marked the decline of their militaristic identity. Additionally, technological advancements among their adversaries contributed to the Vikings' decline. As fortified towns and advanced military tactics emerged, Viking ships, despite being advanced for their time, could not always breach these defenses. The development of new weapons and strategies by their opponents showcased how warfare was evolving. While the Vikings were skilled naval tacticians, the changing landscape of combat required adaptability that some Viking leaders struggled to embrace. In summary, the decline of Viking power was not merely a result of external pressures, but rather a confluence of factors: the consolidation of European kingdoms, the spread of Christianity, internal divisions, economic shifts, and advancements in military technology all played significant roles in this transformation. As we reflect on the Vikings' legacy, it is essential to recognize that their story is not solely one of conquest and brutality. Instead, it is a complex narrative of adaptation, change, and eventual assimilation into the broader European context. Understanding this decline adds depth to our perception of Viking society and challenges the stereotypes often associated with their culture. As we move forward, keep in mind how the rich tapestry of Viking history offers insights into the resilience and adaptability of societies throughout time. What stories and legends illustrate the Viking experience, and how do they provide insights into their culture? Many people think of Vikings purely as raiders and warriors, but their sagas and myths reveal a far richer and more complex narrative. In this section, we will explore the fascinating tales that not only capture the imagination, but also reflect the values, beliefs, and aspirations of Viking society. To start, consider this intriguing fact: Viking sagas were not just stories, they were a way of preserving history, cultural identity, and moral lessons. They served a dual purpose: entertaining and educating. Imagine sitting around a fire in a longhouse, listening to tales of brave heroes and fierce battles, while also learning about the consequences of pride and betrayal. These stories were the lifeblood of Viking culture, passing down wisdom from generation to generation. Let's dive into one of the most famous sagas, the Saga of the Volsungs. This epic tale features Sigurd, a hero who slays the dragon Fafnir and gains immense wealth. However, the saga saga does not simply glorify his strength, it also explores themes of fate, revenge, and the tragic consequences of ambition. For many viewers, the idea of a hero who must grapple with destiny is relatable, creating a connection that transcends time. The controversial takeaway: while Sigurd is celebrated as a hero, his story is steeped in tragedy, reminding us that heroism often comes at a significant cost. Another compelling narrative is the saga of the Ynglinks, which recounts the history of the Swedish kings and their divine ancestry. This saga weaves together history and mythology, suggesting that the kings were descended from gods. The notion of divine right to rule was crucial in Viking society, as it established legitimacy and reinforced social hierarchies. Interestingly, many cultures around the world share similar beliefs in divine ancestry, highlighting a universal human tendency to connect leadership with the divine. It raises the question, do we still see echoes of this belief in our modern societies today? Moreover, the saga of Grettir the Strong portrays the life of a hero who is cursed and faces numerous challenges, including isolation and outlaws. Grettir embodies the Viking ideal of strength and resilience, but also illustrates the darker side of heroism, loneliness and alienation. His struggles resonate with anyone who has faced adversity, emphasizing the human experience at its core. It's a little-known fact that Grettir's tale was so influential that it inspired later works, including elements of modern fantasy literature. This legacy underscores how storytelling can shape cultural narratives across generations. Viking sagas also reflect the importance of honor and reputation. For instance, in the saga of Njal, the themes of vengeance and retribution are prevalent. The story shows how personal honor could lead to cycles of violence that ultimately devastate families and communities. While many may argue that Vikings thrived on violence, these narratives suggest a more complex understanding of their values. The controversial notion here is that their very adherence to honor may have contributed to their downfall as much as their warrior spirit did. Furthermore, the saga of Hrolf Kraki presents a tale of a king who faces numerous trials, yet his story emphasizes friendship, loyalty, and the power of unity in overcoming obstacles. Hrolf's relationships with his warriors illustrate the significance of camaraderie in Viking culture, highlighting how collective strength could achieve great feats. The underlying lesson, both, often yields greater results than individual prowess alone, a principle that holds true in many aspects of life today. Additionally, these sagas include moral lessons woven into their narratives, addressing issues like pride, betrayal, and the fleeting nature of life. They remind audiences of the importance of humility and the need for balance in life. It's fascinating to think that stories told centuries ago still resonate with us today, encouraging us to reflect on our values and behaviors. The Viking sagas are more than just tales of adventure. They are rich narratives that encapsulate the complexities of human nature and the Viking ethos. They illustrate not only the valor and strength of the Vikings, but also their vulnerabilities, moral dilemmas, and the impact of their beliefs on their actions. Exploring these myths provides us with a deeper understanding of the Viking legacy, challenging the perception of them as mere brutal warriors and revealing them as a society shaped by stories, values, and shared experiences. As we continue this journey into Viking history, keep in mind how these narratives connect us to the past and enrich our understanding of human nature itself. How can understanding the humanity of Vikings reshape our perceptions of these historical figures? Most people think of Vikings as brutal raiders, but the reality is that they were complex individuals with struggles, fears, and aspirations, much like ourselves. In this section, we'll delve into how recognizing their humanity can foster empathy and a deeper understanding of their culture. Let's begin with a thought-provoking fact. The Vikings lived in a society that valued honor, bravery, and loyalty. Despite their fearsome reputation, they also faced personal struggles that shaped their actions and decisions. Imagine being a Viking warrior, not only grappling with the expectations of strength and courage, but also dealing with the emotional weight of loss and betrayal. The truth is, many Vikings experience deep-seated fears of failure, alienation, and the pressure to uphold their family legacy. Consider the tale of Lagertha, a legendary Viking shield maiden. While some may dismiss her as just another figure in Viking lore, her story represents the real struggles women faced in a male-dominated society. Lagertha fought not only in battles but also against societal expectations. Her narrative reveals that Viking women could be warriors, leaders, and fierce protectors of their homes, challenging the traditional views of gender roles. It's a controversial perspective. Many believe Vikings were solely male warriors, but Lagertha's legacy proves otherwise. Moreover, the saga of Grettir the Strong provides insight into the emotional turmoil experienced by Viking warriors. Grettir, while celebrated for his strength and bravery, was also marked by loneliness and isolation. His story highlights the emotional cost of a life spent in conflict, showing that the harsh realities of Viking life were often at odds with the idealized image of the warrior. This complexity prompts us to reconsider the notion that all Vikings were fearless. They were also vulnerable individuals facing the weight of their actions. This narrative isn't just confined to the warrior class. The Viking societal structure itself revealed layers of humanity. For instance, chieftains had to balance power and responsibility, often making difficult choices that affected their followers. The weight of leadership came came with immense pressure, leading to conflict and sometimes betrayal among their ranks. The political dynamics of Viking society remind us that leadership can be fraught with moral dilemmas, and these challenges shape the actions of those in power. Engaging with Viking tales also opens the door to understanding their values around community and family. The concept of Ifrith, or peace, was paramount in Viking culture. It illustrated the importance of maintaining harmony within the community, emphasizing that even the fiercest warriors sought to protect their kin and uphold their societal values. This insight reveals that Vikings weren't just driven by the thirst for conquest. They also valued relationships, loyalty, and the well-being of their families. On a broader scale, the exploration of Viking humanity allows us to dismantle stereotypes and foster empathy. Many people might argue that we shouldn't romanticize or excuse violent actions, but recognizing the complex motivations behind those actions helps us understand the context in which they occurred. The fear of losing one's honor, the desire for wealth, or the need for security. These are human motivations that resonate across time and cultures. Another captivating aspect is the role of spirituality in Viking life. The belief in gods like Odin and Freya provided not just religious structure, but also a way for Vikings to grapple with their mortality and fate. They viewed their lives as intertwined with divine will, influencing their actions and decisions. By acknowledging this spiritual dimension, we can see Vikings not merely as warriors, but as individuals seeking meaning in a chaotic world. To truly appreciate the Viking legacy, we must embrace the multifaceted nature of their existence. Understanding their fears, dreams, and aspirations allows us to humanize these historical figures, encouraging deeper engagement with their stories. Instead of viewing Vikings through the lens of brutality, we can appreciate their resilience, ingenuity, and the moral complexities of their choices. In conclusion, embracing the humanity of Vikings not only reshapes our perceptions of them, but also enriches our understanding of history itself. By recognizing their struggles, fears, and aspirations, we can foster empathy and appreciate the intricate tapestry of their culture. As we continue exploring the Viking legacy, let's remember that these figures were not simply defined by their rating. They were individuals navigating a world filled with challenges, seeking honor and meaning in their lives. This perspective opens the door for deeper conversations about our shared human experience, bridging the gap between the past and present. What elements of Viking culture can still be felt in our society today? Most people think that Vikings are merely historical figures associated with raiding and pillaging. However, the reality is that their influence permeates various aspects of modern life, from language to cultural values. In this section, we'll explore how Viking culture has left an indelible mark on contemporary society. First, let's consider language. Did you know that many English words can be traced back to Old Norse, the language spoken by Viking? Words like sky, anger, and gift have roots in Old Norse. This linguistic heritage demonstrates how Viking culture has shaped the English language, enriching our vocabulary in ways that are often overlooked. The incorporation of these words into everyday speech reflects the Vikings' historical presence in the British Isles and their interactions with local populations. Additionally, place names across the UK and beyond bear witness to the Viking legacy. Cities like York, originally named Jorvik, and areas in England ending with the suffix by meaning town, showcase the lasting impact of Viking settlement. These names serve as reminders of Viking exploration and settlement patterns, illustrating how deeply woven their culture is into the very fabric of our geographical identity. Furthermore, Viking values of courage, loyalty, and exploration resonate strongly in today's society. The Viking ethos emphasized bravery in the face of adversity, a principle that inspires many contemporary narratives. Think about modern tales of adventure, whether in literature or film, that echo the Viking spirit of exploration. Movies like How to Train Your Dragon, while fictional, draw upon Viking imagery and themes, capturing the imagination of audiences and reigniting interest in their stories. A strange but fascinating fact is that some modern sports and physical activities are influenced by Viking traditions. For example, the sport of handball has roots in ancient Viking games, where they played ball games as a form of entertainment. This connection reveals how Vikings not only engaged in combat, but also valued recreation and competition, which continues to thrive in contemporary sporting culture. While we often romanticize Viking raids, it's essential to recognize that their achievements in craftsmanship also significantly influenced modern society. The Vikings were skilled shipbuilders and metalworkers, and their advancements in these areas laid the groundwork for future innovations. The long ships they crafted were not just vessels of war. They represented engineering marvels of their time, designed for both speed and versatility. This dedication to craftsmanship is mirrored in today's focus on quality and design in various fields. From technology to fashion, Viking art too remains relevant today. The intricate patterns and motifs found in Viking artifacts have inspired contemporary artists and designers. You'll often see these designs in modern jewelry, tattoos, and fashion, showcasing a revival of interest in Viking aesthetics. The intertwining knotwork and animal motifs serve as a bridge between past and present, illustrating how historical art can find new life in modern creativity. However, it's also crucial to address the controversial elements of Viking culture that persist in our narratives. For instance, the glorification of Viking warriors warriors can sometimes overshadow the brutality of their conquests. While celebrating their adventurous spirit, we must also acknowledge the violence and oppression that accompany their raids. This duality in perception pushes us to think critically about how we celebrate cultural legacies and the complexities behind them. In addition to language and art, the concept of community and family remains central in Viking culture and modern society. The Vikings placed immense value on kinship and loyalty, principles that continue to resonate today. Many families today still prioritize gatherings, traditions, and heritage, reflecting a deep-rooted connection to our ancestry. This sense of community, much like that of the Vikings, fosters a sense of belonging and continuity across generations. As we continue to explore the Viking influence on modern society, it's essential to recognize their contributions to democracy and governance. The Viking assembly, known as the Uthinging, was a precursor to modern democratic practices. These gatherings allowed for community decision-making and conflict resolution, laying the groundwork for later political structures. This democratic spirit can be seen in contemporary governance, where public participation remains a cornerstone of democracy. Moreover, the fascination with Vikings in popular culture has led to a resurgence of interest in Norse mythology and spirituality. Many people today explore Viking-inspired spiritual practices, embracing the philosophies and values of their ancestors. This revival speaks to a broader trend of looking to the past for guidance in navigating the complexities of modern life. The embrace of these ancient beliefs highlights a human desire to connect with something greater, bridging the gap between past and present. In conclusion, the elements of Viking culture that remain present in today's society are multifaceted and profound. From language and art to values and community, their legacy continues to shape our identities and experiences. Understanding these connections enriches our appreciation for history and encourages us to engage in deeper conversations about our shared human experience. As we reflect on the Viking influence, we are reminded that the past is not merely a distant memory. It is an integral part of who we are today, shaping our future in unexpected ways. What common myths about Vikings need to be debunked? Most people think that all Vikings were savage warriors who lived by the sword and wore horned helmets. However, the reality is much more nuanced. Many misconceptions surrounding Viking culture have persisted over the years, leading to a skewed perception of who they were and what they represented. In this section, we will explore these myths and set the record straight. First, let's address the myth that all Vikings were brutal raiders. While it's true that the Viking Age saw its fair share of violence, this characterization overlooks the multifaceted nature of Viking society. Most Vikings were farmers, craftsmen, and traders, not just warriors. In fact, many raiding expeditions were financially motivated rather than purely violent. Vikings aimed to gain wealth and resources to support their families and communities back home. This raises an important question. Why do we continue to associate Vikings primarily with brutality when their lives were so much more diverse? A strange fact that might surprise you is that the word Viking itself originally referred to a specific activity rather than a distinct group of people. It comes from the Old Norse term Vikingur, meaning a person who goes on an expedition. This implies that anyone could be a Viking, not just those engaged in raiding. The reality is that many individuals, including traders and explorers, identified as Vikings when they embarked on sea voyages. Understanding this distinction allows us to appreciate the various roles people played in Viking society. Next, let's debunk the infamous horned helmets myth. Contrary to popular belief, there is no historical evidence that Vikings wore horned helmets during battles. This image has been perpetuated by modern media and artistic representations. In reality, Viking helmets were likely more practical and crafted from iron, designed for protection rather than flamboyance. It's fascinating how a single image can dominate our perception of a culture. By recognizing this myth, we can gain a clearer understanding of Viking warfare and their approach to battle. Another common misconception is that Vikings were uncivilized and lacked culture. However, the truth is that Viking society had a rich cultural heritage, including art, poetry, and storytelling. They created intricate woodwork, jewelry, and textiles, showcasing their craftsmanship. Viking sagas, epic tales of heroes and gods, were an essential part of their culture, passed down through generations. These stories reflect the values and beliefs of their society, revealing a complex worldview that contradicts the notion of them being mere savages. A controversial point is that many people believe Vikings only targeted monasteries and churches during their raids due to the easy riches they could acquire. While it's true that these locations were often targeted, this practice had strategic implications. Monasteries held not only valuable items but also significant political power. By raiding these sites, Vikings were not only seeking wealth but also aiming to weaken their rivals. This understanding of their motives challenges the oversimplified view of Vikings as mere marauders and encourages a more comprehensive examination of their impact on history. One little-known fact is that Viking society was more democratic than many would assume. They had assemblies known as things, where free men gathered to discuss important matters, settle disputes, and make decisions. This early form of governance illustrates that Vikings had a sense of social organization and community involvement, which contradicts the stereotype of lawless brutality. Recognizing this democratic aspect of Viking culture invites us to reconsider their legacy and the value values they upheld. Furthermore, it's essential to note that Viking raids often resulted in cultural exchanges, rather than pure destruction. When Vikings settled in new lands, they frequently assimilated aspects of local cultures, influencing each other's traditions and practices. This blending of cultures led to the development of new identities and contributed to the evolution of European societies. Understanding this exchange challenges the black and white narrative of Vikings as mere aggressors and highlights their role in shaping the cultural landscape of the time. As we explore the complexities of Viking life, it becomes clear that these myths are not merely trivial misunderstandings, but significant barriers to appreciating their true legacy. The sensationalized portrayal of Vikings in popular culture continues to overshadow their rich history. By addressing these misconceptions, we can foster a more nuanced understanding of their contributions to society and acknowledge the intricate tapestry of their culture. In conclusion, challenging the common myths about Vikings allows us to appreciate the depth of their society and their lasting influence on our world today. From their multifaceted roles as traders and craftsmen to their democratic practices and cultural exchanges, the Vikings were much more than the brutal raiders often depicted in media. By uncovering the truth behind these misconceptions, we not only honor their history, but also enrich our understanding of humanity's shared past. What is the importance of understanding Vikings within their historical context? Many people might think of Vikings simply as brutal warriors or savage raiders, but the reality is far more nuanced. Understanding the context in which they lived not only provides clarity on their actions, but also challenges preconceived notions that have persisted for centuries. To begin, let's consider the historical backdrop of the Viking Age, which lasted from roughly 793 to 1066 AD. This period was marked by significant upheaval across Europe, with the fall of the Roman Empire leading to the fragmentation of territories and a rise in localized power struggles. In such an environment, survival was paramount. The Vikings, hailing from the harsh and often unforgiving climates of Scandinavia, were not just fighting for wealth, they were often fighting for their very existence. A strange but relevant fact is that Vikings were renowned for their adaptability. They thrived in a region with limited resources, which shaped their need to explore and raid. When you realize that the Nordic countries had a lack of arable land and a need to sustain their communities, it becomes clear that their expansionist behavior was driven by necessity. This is a far cry from the simplistic image of them as mere marauders seeking bloodshed and glory. Now let's address a common misconception. Many believe that Vikings operated in a chaotic and lawless manner. In truth, Viking society had established norms and practices. Their laws and social systems were surprisingly advanced for the time. They held assemblies called things, where free men gathered to discuss matters of law and community decisions. This democratic aspect of Viking culture challenges the narrative of them being merely savage warriors. Recognizing that they had a structured society allows us to view their actions in a more nuanced light. However, the context of the Viking Age wasn't solely shaped by external pressures. The internal dynamics of Viking society played a significant role as well. For instance, the competition among chieftains and clans often led to conflict as leaders sought to assert their dominance. This internal struggle influenced their expansionist behavior. It raises a thought-provoking question. Could the very structure of their society have driven them to become the fierce warriors we often read about? As we explore this further, we find that societal pressures were not just limited to power struggles. The rise of Christianity in Europe began to change the landscape significantly. Many Viking raids targeted Christian sites, which were seen as symbols of wealth and power. However, this was not merely an act of aggression. It was also a response to a rapidly changing world where they were encountering new beliefs and political structures. The transition from paganism to Christianity in Viking lands created tension and resistance, shaping their identity in profound ways. One controversial point to consider is how Viking culture and its eventual conversion to Christianity illustrates the broader theme of cultural exchange. While some may view the conversion as a loss of Viking identity, it also reflects their adaptability and willingness to evolve in response to external influences. Understanding this transformation helps us appreciate the complexity of their society rather than simply viewing it as one-dimensional. A little-known fact that might surprise you is that Viking women played a crucial role in this context. They were not merely passive figures in Viking society, but active participants. Women managed households, participated in trade, and sometimes even led expeditions. This complexity adds another layer to the narrative. If Viking women were integral to maintaining social structure and family life, how does that reshape our understanding of Viking culture? Recognizing the role of women also highlights another important aspect: the perception of masculinity in Viking culture. The warrior ethos was deeply intertwined with concepts of honor and reputation, but it wasn't the sole defining characteristic of a Viking's worth. As we examine this more closely, we find that notions of masculinity varied widely, further complicating our understanding of Viking identity. Moreover, considering the geographical context of the Viking Age sheds light on their motivations. Living in a region characterized by its rugged terrain and harsh winters, the Vikings developed a culture of resilience and innovation. Their remarkable shipbuilding skills allowed them to explore far beyond their immediate surroundings, reaching as far far as North America and the Mediterranean. This adaptability and thirst for exploration contradict the stereotype of Vikings being only concerned with raiding and violence. As we delve deeper, we must also acknowledge the impact of climate on Viking behavior. Environmental changes, such as the Little Ice Age, which began in the late medieval period, affected their agricultural output. Such challenges likely forced them to seek new territories for sustenance, propelling their expeditions. This relationship between climate and societal behavior illustrates how external factors shaped the Viking experience. In conclusion, understanding Vikings within their historical context is essential for a comprehensive view of their culture and actions. They were products of their time, shaped by societal pressures, environmental factors, and internal dynamics. By acknowledging these complexities, we not only humanize the Vikings, but also gain a richer appreciation for their legacy. As we continue our exploration of Viking history, consider how these insights might influence your understanding of other cultures and their narratives. Recognizing the importance of context can foster empathy and a deeper connection to our shared human experience. What is the connection between Vikings and modern culture? Most people think of Vikings as nothing more than savage warriors in horned helmets, but the reality is that their influence stretches far beyond the pages of history and into the fabric of our contemporary society. From language to literature, and even in the way we celebrate certain holidays, the legacy of the Vikings is all around us, often in surprising forms. To start, let's explore how Viking language has seeped into modern English. Many everyday words we use today have Old Norse origins, the language spoken by the Vikings. For instance, words like window, which comes from the Old Norse vindaga meaning wind-eye, and husband, from husbandi meaning master of the house, show just how deeply rooted Viking culture is in our linguistic heritage. This connection is intriguing, as it prompts us to consider how language evolves and reflects the societies that wield it. However, it's not just language where we see Viking influence. It's also evident in modern literature and entertainment. The fascination with Viking mythology and sagas has inspired countless books, films, and television shows. Series like Vikings and movies such as How to Train Your Dragon have brought Norse stories to life for new audiences, blending historical elements with fantasy. These representations, while sometimes exaggerated, serve to perpetuate interest in Viking culture and history. An interesting fact is that the fascination with Vikings isn't limited to history buffs. The modern portrayal often romanticizes Viking life, focusing on their adventurous spirit and exploration rather than solely their reputation for violence. This shift in narrative can be seen as a reflection of our society's desire for heroes who embody resilience and courage. However, it does raise a controversial point. Can we truly celebrate the Viking spirit while ignoring the brutal realities of their conquests? Let's take a closer look at how Viking holidays have influenced contemporary celebrations. For instance, many people may not realize that traditions surrounding the winter solstice, such as Yule, have origins in Viking customs. The Vikings celebrated Yule with feasting and festivities, marking the return of the sun as days began to lengthen. This holiday has evolved into modern Christmas celebrations, showcasing how traditions can adapt over time while still honoring their roots. Moreover, the enduring image of the Viking warrior, strong, brave, and fearless, continues to influence modern notions of masculinity and adventure. In a world that often romanticizes the past, this archetype can overshadow the complexities of Viking society, including the roles of women and children. This brings us to a rare fact that might surprise you. Viking women had far more rights and independence than many of their contemporaries in other cultures. They could own property, initiate divorce, and even participate in raids. Understanding these dynamics is crucial as we explore the connection between Vikings and modern culture. The representation of Viking women in contemporary media, while often limited, has begun to shift as more stories recognize their contributions. This evolving narrative encourages a broader understanding of Viking society, moving beyond the simplistic view of Vikings as just raiders and highlighting their roles as traders, explorers, and community builders. The influence of Viking culture also extends to modern governance and legal systems. The concept of a thing or assembly, where free men would gather to discuss and resolve issues, has echoes in modern democratic practices. This participatory governance model reflects the Vikings' understanding of community and law, challenging the notion that they were solely savage warriors devoid of civilized practices. A compelling and sometimes controversial aspect of this conversation revolves around the portrayal of Vikings in popular media. While shows like Vikings present a dramatized view, they also spark interest in Norse history and culture, leading viewers to explore the complexities behind the stories. This interplay between fiction and history raises questions about how we interpret the past and the responsibility of storytellers to present a balanced view. As we consider these connections, we must also address how the Viking legacy has been co-opted by modern nationalist movements in some regions. A romanticized image of the Viking warrior can be problematic when associated with modern extremism or exclusionary ideologies. Essential to disentangle the rich cultural history of the Vikings from contemporary misappropriations, ensuring that our understanding of their influence remains rooted in historical context rather than modern politics. In conclusion, the connection between Vikings and modern culture is intricate and multifaceted. multifaceted. Their language, stories, traditions, and even legal concepts resonate with us today, influencing our society in ways that are often subtle yet profound. Engage with this legacy, we can appreciate the complexities of Viking culture, recognizing that their impact extends far beyond the stereotypes of brutal warriors. The challenge lies in embracing this rich heritage while critically examining how it is portrayed and utilized in contemporary society. By doing so, we not only honor the past, but also enrich our understanding of who we are today. The allure of the Vikings has been a subject of fascination for centuries. But how do modern perceptions of these Norse warriors differ from their historical reality? Many people picture Vikings as ruthless barbarians, but is that the whole story? Today, we will explore the connection between Vikings and modern culture, unearthing how their legacy continues to shape our world, often in surprising ways. Let's dive into the world of film and television. Popular series like Us Vikings and movies like Authority have glamorized and reimagined the Viking experience, blending historical facts with sensationalism. While these portrayals can draw in new fans and spark interest in Norse history, they often paint an incomplete picture. For example, the characterizations of Vikings as purely savage raiders can overshadow their roles as traders, explorers, and even settlers. It's fascinating to realize that while many narratives focus on their violent raids, the Vikings also had a rich tradition of commerce and diplomacy. This leads us to a thought-provoking fact. The Viking Age was marked by significant cultural exchanges. Did you know that the Vikings not only raided but also integrated into the societies they encountered? Their interactions with the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world led to a flow of ideas, goods, and technologies. Yet the images of horned helmets and bloody battles often dominate our perceptions, obscuring the Vikings' contributions to trade and cultural diffusion. Let's talk about language. The Norse influence on modern languages is profound, especially in English. Everyday words like sky, window, and even husband have their roots in Old Norse. This linguistic legacy illustrates how deeply intertwined Viking culture is with our daily lives, yet many are unaware of this connection. The question arises, how do we reconcile the image of Vikings as violent marauders with their significant impact on language and culture? Another area where Viking influence is evident is in our legal systems. The concept of a thing, an assembly where free men gather to discuss and resolve disputes, has echoes in modern democratic practices. This shows that while Vikings may be remembered for their ferocity, they also contributed to the foundations of participatory governance. This nuanced view invites us to reconsider our perceptions of their societal structures. Now let's turn to the realm of popular media. The glorification of Viking culture often simplifies the complexities of their society. Shows and movies frequently depict a world of fierce warriors and dramatic battles, yet the everyday lives of Vikings involved much more than combat. They were skilled farmers, artisans, and traders. The tension between these portrayals and the historical realities creates a fascinating dynamic. A strange but enlightening fact is that Viking women had more rights than women in many other contemporary cultures. They could own property, initiate divorce, and even fight alongside men in battle. This challenges the traditional narrative of gender roles in Viking society and prompts a revaluation of what we think we know about their culture. However, while these representations can be entertaining, they also lead to misunderstandings. The romanticized view of Viking life can obscure the brutality and complexity of their history. How do we address the tension between myth and reality? By engaging with primary sources, sagas, and archaeological findings, we can begin to piece together a more accurate depiction of Viking life. Consider how holidays and traditions can trace their origins back to Viking customs. For instance, Yule, which celebrates the winter solstice, has its roots in Viking festivities. This blending of ancient practices into modern celebrations illustrates the continuity of cultural traditions over centuries. It invites us to reflect on how these ancient beliefs and rituals resonate in our contemporary celebrations, enriching our understanding of heritage. Yet, this brings up a controversial point. Can we separate the Viking legacy from the violence often associated with it? While their exploratory spirit and trading prowess are commendable, we must also confront the darker aspects of their raids and conquests. This duality is essential for a well-rounded understanding of Viking history. As we analyze modern perceptions of Vikings, it's crucial to recognize the role of nostalgia in shaping these views. The allure of a simpler, heroic past often clouds our understanding of the realities faced by Viking societies. This nostalgia can create a disconnect between the romanticized versions and the lived experiences of these individuals. Let's not forget the portrayal of Vikings in the realm of national identity. In some regions, the Viking image has been co-opted by nationalist movements, distorting their legacy for modern agendas. This raises important questions about the responsibilities of storytellers and historians in presenting a balanced view. How do we ensure that the Viking narrative is not manipulated for contemporary political purposes? Ultimately, the connection between Vikings and modern culture is rich and complex. Their language, stories, and traditions continue to resonate today, influencing everything from our vocabulary to our celebrations. As we engage with this legacy, it is essential to appreciate the multifaceted nature of Viking history, recognizing both the admirable qualities and the more troubling aspects of their past. In conclusion, the fascination with Vikings reveals much about our own society. By examining how they they are portrayed in media, and how their legacy persists in our language and traditions, we gain a deeper understanding of not only who the Vikings were, but also who we are today. As we explore this connection, we open ourselves to richer conversations about history, identity, and the complexities of human culture. If you enjoyed this epic journey, please subscribe to our channel for more thrilling historical tales. Don't miss out on new videos. Hit the notification bell to stay updated.